So you're relocating to Somerville, Massachusetts, and you have no idea where to begin. You don't know the neighborhoods. You don't know if you even want to be in Somerville. In today's video, I'm going to give you guys a quick breakdown of the various neighborhoods of Somerville, at least as a local in the way that I kind of think about the areas. So hopefully by the end of this video, you guys have a better understanding of if Somerville is the place you want to relocate. Hey guys, if you don't know me, my name is Jankowitz. I'm a real estate agent based in Cambridge and Somerville, Massachusetts. I've closed over 400 transactions in the last 5 years. If you like the videos, please take a second, hit that like and subscribe button. Let's get into the video. And so the first place that we're going to start off with is actually East Somerville, which is sort of on the very east end of Somerville here. And it's framed by Route 93, a major highway. And then we have McGrath Highway, Route 28 along here. And then we have Washington Street along here. If you follow Washington Street this way, you'll go into another area, Union Square, which we'll talk about in a second. But generally, East Somerville is this little zone here. You'll notice there is a T-stop down here. This is the new East Somerville Green Line Extension T-stop. So this is really nice because about a year ago, as of the shooting this video, back in 2023, 2022 timeframe, there was no great easy subway access besides Sullivan Square over here, which is actually in Charlestown, which is an Orange Line T-stop. So it's nice to also have access to that Green Line T-stop. Generally, when I think about East Somerville, it's definitely an up-and-coming part of town. It's probably your most affordable part of all of Somerville. And, you know, it's not necessarily the area that people are most aggressive to in terms of flocking to and paying the highest price and having the craziest bidding wars. There are, I should say, a couple of restaurants along Broadway here. So along Broadway here, you do have some restaurants and shops and cool things to do, but maybe it's not the hippest part of town. Let's put it that way. But if you want to be in Somerville, if you want to own in Somerville, if you want to invest in Somerville and you're on a bit of a budget, this is one of the best places to be. And because it is sort of an up and coming area, I think that there is a lot of longer term upside, although I don't see it happening, directly overnight. You do now have the Green Line and Orange Line access, which is nice. You also have easy access to Route 93 if you're a commuter either into town or out of town. In addition, you're relatively close to Assembly Row, which is just across 93 on the other side. Assembly Row, if you're not familiar with it, is a giant sort of outdoor mall area. It also has Orange Line T-stop here, the Assembly stop, but what it really has is movie theaters, shops, restaurants. It's got a Trader Joe's, it's got a Starbucks, it's got kind of everything you need. So a lot of people relocating from out of state or out of country really like going there because it just kind of has everything you need, one-stop shop. Now that we looked at East Somerville, we're going to head along Washington Street here, and that's going to take us right into Union Square. So this whole zone here is known as Union Square. It is arguably the most desirable, or up and coming, I should say, hottest part of Somerville is a better way to say it. It's the hottest part of Somerville as of the recording of this video, again in 2024. And so what you have here is, first of all, a Green Line T-stop that came into being in the last year or two. So you have easy access to downtown Boston. Again, this was an area a couple years ago where there was not easy T access. So if you lived here, it was hard to get around. But now with the T, a lot of development has come into being. A lot of development is also planned. You have Bow Market over here, which is sort of outdoor marketplace with pop-up shops and restaurants and cool tchotchkes and other things to get around there. You have a Market Basket here for grocery shopping. You also have Reliable Market in Union Square, which has some great shopping as well. You have Lincoln Park down here, which is a great park in the area. And Bow Market is just a really cool, hip place to be. There's a lot of great restaurants and shops and things to do there. Just north is Prospect Hill. This is actually up on a hill. You have some beautiful homes here, both large single-family homes as well as some multi-families and condos up here. Very desirable place to live. It's going to be much more expensive than East Somerville if you want to buy in Union Square, but the difference is going to be you're going to step outside. There's going to be a lot of things to do, and you're also making a great investment as well. One more thing I just want to add real quick about Union Square is just south here. If you go along Prospect Street, you're going to actually enter into Cambridge and East Cambridge, and if you continue along, you'll actually get to Central Square in Cambridge. So it is sort of right on the border there. Also, if you head southwest here, you'll run into Harvard Square. So for those reasons, it's also quite desirable. Now we're going to actually head a bit north. So Union Square, I kind of think of it in Prospect Hill, ending around Highland Ave, which is right here. And then across Highland Ave, you have Somerville High School, which was totally renovated, redone a couple years ago. And then across there, we head into The next zone, I call this general area the Gilman Square area, which has a new T-stop. I don't know if you can see it there, but that's a brand new T-stop that takes you to downtown Boston. Gilman Square is excellent. It has Sarma, which is an awesome, one of the best restaurants in all of Somerville, and has really a nice community feel. There's a handful of cool shops and things to do, but isn't like Union Square where you have many dozens of things to do. It's more of a community place, or a little more residential. And then as we kind of head up here, we get into sort of the Winter Hill part of town. You know, this was an area that maybe wasn't that desirable even maybe like 7-8 years ago, but it's changed a lot. Now that we have this T-stop here, it's an area that I see very much gentrifying and changing. A lot of young professionals have come into this area, and it's becoming a hotter place to be, again, with that T-stop in town. And I expect more development and more restaurants and shops to come up. Up here we have Broadway, and all along Broadway we do have restaurants and shops. There's been talks about some further development here. There's also a Walgreens up here as well. You will generally find that Winter Hill in the Gilman Square area is more affordable than your Union Square, but less affordable than East Somerville. And because it's up and coming, it's becoming less and less affordable every single year. So that's something to be aware of. And I would generally consider sort of Winter Hill to be this zone here. And then, you know, down here in this little zone is kind of the Gilman Square area. Next, we're going to go to a very small little pocket, 10 Hills, which is just across 93 here. It's just this little zone here. So there's not going to be a ton of inventory that comes up every year. But what makes 10 Hills so desirable is, first of all, it's right on the Mystic River. So all along Short Drive here, you have river views. So a lot of properties actually have water views. It's really the only place in Somerville where you can have these beautiful water views. And because it's such a small area, it's just inventory tends to be very limited. So if you decide to target this part of town, you could be waiting quite a while to find something. So you have the Mystic River here. And then what's nice is, you know, if you go across Fellsway here on the other side, you're in Assembly Row, again with a T-stop, the orange line, as well as all your grocery shops, restaurants, cafes, things to do there, movie theater. So it's a very convenient place. You have Assembly here, you have 93 here, which can shoot you off to wherever you need to go. You're also just right over the bridge here to Wellington Station and Medford, which has a bunch of other restaurants and shops. And then if you continue north here, you have Wegmans, you have an Aldi's, you have a lot of options. You're not that far from Whole Foods as well. And then you have a whole zone here over in Everett with your Costco, your Home Depot, your Target, Texas Roadhouse, Night Shift Brewing, etc. So it's a very convenient place from a driving perspective. You're very close to a lot of things. You also are walkable to Assembly and the T-stop there. But again, it's a very small inventory area, so it's just something to be aware of. But it's a good place to add to the list. Generally, you're going to find 10 Hills to be in a similar price point as maybe Gilman and Winter Hill, or maybe slightly more expensive, but again, a little bit cheaper than, say, your Union Square. Now we're going to head back down south here, and we're going to head over to Magoon Square. Generally, when we think of Magoon Square, we think basically where Broadway and Medford Street meets. So again, here's Medford Street, comes up here, and then, you know, here's Broadway here. And so it kind of meets over here. And so I would say this whole general zone here is what I consider sort of Magoon Square. You do have a new T-stop as well that came into being over here between Lowell and Vernon. So again, another Green Line stop, which makes this area much more accessible to downtown Boston. You know, as of a couple years ago, if you were here, you were typically a 20 to 25 minute walk to your closest T. So the result has been more gentrification. Right on Medford Street, you do have some great restaurants. You have Penny Packers, which is one of my favorite restaurants. You also have a really awesome patio as well with Daddy Jones, which has great Greek food and bar. It's a bar as well. So there's some really good stuff around Magoon Square. You also have Old Magoon Saloon and a handful of other really good options. So there are a couple restaurants here. Again, it's not going to be close to Union Square. By far, of all the areas we've covered so far, Union Square by far is the most things to do where you can really truly step out and have many dozens of options. But you're going to have a handful of very solid options here, and you're going to have walkability now to the T. And there's a lot of like nice quiet side streets, which can be very helpful as well. So what you're going to find is you can get pretty solid value here if you want to target buying in Somerville. Next up, we're going to head a little south now. So we have Union Square again here, we have Magoon Square here, and then south here we have the Porter Square area. The Porter Square T-stop is technically in Cambridge, But right over the line, and what I consider part of Porter Square on the Somerville side, you have your CVS, you have your Star Market, which has a Starbucks inside there. You have the Porter Square bookstore, you have a Dunkin' Donuts, and then all along Beacon Street here, as well as Mass Ave here, which you see is 2A, you have tons of restaurants and shops and good things happening. This is an extremely desirable area to live. It's extremely convenient. You know, with the Porter Square T-stop, it's very easy to get into downtown Boston. And so you're going to find that you're paying a pretty penny to be here. It's going to be in a similar price point to Union Square at this point. Union Square might be slightly cheaper, but very expensive, extremely walkable. This is sort of the second neighborhood that we're going over right now that's in the same category of Union Square, where you step outside, you have everything at your fingertips. You're going to pay for it. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to zig back up a little bit here. And so just to get our bearings straight here, we have Magoon Square here, we have Union Square back down here, we have Porter Square here, and then back up here we have Ball Square. Ball Square is another area that has a new Green Line extension. You can see the T-stop here. This again goes into downtown Boston. Ball Square is kind of interesting in that along Broadway here, you have one side which is Medford over here, and the other side is Somerville over here. So now with the Ball Square T-stop, it's become more and more desirable. You know, most of these people here were commuting to Porter Square, but now a lot of these properties that are close to Ball Square have become much more expensive and much more competitive now that you have the new Ball Square T-stop. And I found that in this area in particular, prices have really shot up quite a bit. So it can be very challenging to get into this part of town, but it is extremely convenient. And with the new T-stop here, it's awesome. Right along Broadway, you have some of my favorite places to go. You have Kelly's Diner, which is my favorite diner. You also have Taco Party, which is a vegan taco place. I'm not vegan myself, but I frankly love this place. They have incredible nachos. So that's also a great place to go. A handful of other cool spots there. They have a really great wine shop, where you can get cheese boards, you get a great selection of wine, and a lot of other kind of nice little goodies there. So that's one of my favorite wine shops, although I'm not a huge wine drinker, but if I'm going to get wine, that's probably where I'm going to go. So really great location. You are close to the Rotary here. Some people call it the Circle of Death. It has many turn offs and ons. So if you're a driver and you're nervous about rotaries, this is a little scary, but you will get used to it, I promise. But it is an area where you're going to start seeing some tough students as well, both undergrad and grad, as you head sort of more north in this direction, but probably not as much actually in the Ball Square area. All right, now we're going to just drop down a hair and head a little bit south to Davis Square. Davis Square, I put this in a similar bucket to your Porter and your Union Square. Extremely walkable, tons of restaurants, tons of shops. You do have a Red Line T-stop, which takes you into downtown Boston. Lots of young professionals, lots of yuppies, lots of families with little kids, and then you also have your Tufts contingent who comes down for all the cool stuff. There's bars here, there's live music, there's restaurants, there's shops. There's a lot of redevelopment that's also planned in Davis Square, so it's just going to change a bit over the years, but I think overall in a positive direction. There's also a great movie theater here as well. You also have the Davis Square bike path, which goes quite a ways out of the city, believe it or not, as well, and that's been extended all the way, I don't know if you can see it here, but it goes through Gilman. So that's a big thing that's happened over the last year or so. They've extended this bike path throughout most of Somerville, so it's a great place to bike or walk, especially in the warmer months. So when you're looking for a place to buy, one thing you may consider is what's the proximity to the bike path, because it can be a really nice walk and straight shot to get into Davis Square or elsewhere to other T-stops. But yeah, Davis Square, extremely mature market. You're going to pay quite a bit to be in Davis Square. It's extremely desirable, so you just have to kind of know what you're getting yourself into. But there's a reason it's desirable. It's super walkable and it has a lot of great options. Now we're going to go a bit north here. Down Holland Street, we run into Teal Square. Further north there, we have West Somerville, and then we have sort of the Tufts area. Generally, this area, especially as we get sort of away from walking distance from Davis Square, so as long as you're about 10-15 minute walk, it's extremely desirable and expensive. But as you start getting further away, especially into West Somerville and this Tufts area, you're going to see more and more undergrads looking around here, and you're also going to see prices drop off. So generally speaking, if you're in Somerville or you want to be in Somerville and you want to kind of save, you most likely will want to target either West Somerville or East Somerville. Now, West Somerville, the big challenge here for a long time was T access, although that has changed a bit. Around here in this zone here, we do have a new T-stop that's come into being, a Green Line T-stop, so that is doable now. But just understand that some parts of West Somerville are not particularly walkable to a T, so you have to be okay, most likely driving or potentially biking, depending on where you're going. But if you want to get into the Somerville market, you're on a bit of a tight budget, that could be a very good option for you. Anyways, that's sort of a quick overview of Somerville on Google Maps. I hope you guys have a feel for the different neighborhoods now. If you guys have particular questions, let me know. Otherwise, please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.